Good morning, folks. As you can see, what I have laid out before me is the complete setup for making a bread at home using a Cuisinart bread machine. You could follow this recipe with any other bread machine and it would probably turn out just as right. I've had two other bread machines before and I've made about 2000, well over 2000 breads using different bread machines. I had an Oster bread machine that I started off with, and then I moved on to a Cuisinart, and I preferred the Cuisinart convection bread maker, which I have here. And obviously, I'm just a home user. I make these breads for myself and my family, and I'm showing you the finished product here before I actually make it. Uh, this bread was made with a lighter crust, and so it's has the lighter crust and a lighter color to it. But you could have two other settings, so you get a medium crust and a darker crust, which would give you a thicker crust for your bread. Um, I just wanted to try out the different crusts, and so I tried the lighter crust here. You're also going to need a bread knife because it's not always easy to cut a homemade bread into well-defined slices as I've done. And if you lift it up, you'll see the form of the bread. It's nice. It's country style, and it's very healthy because you're not adding anything to it besides the main ingredients. Um, and every ingredient that you're going to add into a bread machine is right here. Behind those ingredients, you see a little bread box, and that's where I keep my bread, um, so it doesn't get bad. And it comes. This is also available on Amazon, like the bread machine. I have an older slice of a bread, and you can see it's a darker crust. And this was made using the medium setting on the bread machine. It's a slightly thicker crust, thicker cut of a slice of bread, but it's also slightly darker. So what I'm going to do today is create a pretty simple bread using the menus on the bread machine. And I won't go into the explanation of the menus on the bread machine because they are, you'll see when I do that, it's just about a couple buttons and then you can have it started. But I do have some salt, olive oil, and I'm using bread machine yeast. A warm cup of water, which I already preheated before this video to 40 seconds because I knew I was going to spend another minute or two talking about this. And so it's at the right temperature. I normally heat it for about 30 seconds in the microwave, which is a regular home microwave. I always use King Arthur's flour, unbleached bread flour. You could also use any other bread flour of your choice. I found that that does not really alter the way the bread works. In the bread machine, you'll find a pan with a paddle, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to start off by adding the warm water. And if you notice, it's a regular cup, and it's just about half an inch below the surface. So I've taken just about a regular cup of water. The ingredients must be added in the correct sequence. You need the water in the pan, and right after that I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, so that's a heaped teaspoon of salt. I just sprinkle it around. Next is going to be a tablespoon and a half of olive oil or vegetable oil. That's your choice. I prefer olive oil. I get a better texture on the bread. Now that was a tablespoon, so I'm going to do another half, or slightly less than a half maybe. Okay, after having added the salt, the oil and the water that is warm, I'm going to add the flour to this. And this is probably the trickiest thing to do because I'm supposed to get 4 cups of flour in there. But what I normally do is I get it straight from the bag And if you notice, the flour in the bag is kind of compacted, so I gotta loosen it up a bit, and I don't have to get a full cup, because if I do that, I'm probably getting too much flour because it's compacted flour. And that's the secret of getting the bread correct. You don't want to fill it up right to the top. Got another one right there. Again, as you can see, I need to loosen it up as I get it in there. 2 cups. Three. And the last. As you can see, it's a little short. I don't want too much flour in there, because if I get too much flour in there, the bread's not going to rise correctly. Okay. You got to poke a little hole in the bread right here in the center so you can get the yeast in there. So now I'm going to get a tablespoon of yeast in there, and I know how much that is just from making bread all this while. And I just use the lid because I know that's kind of where I am with it. And even if you need a little more yeast, you could add it. But that was roughly a tablespoon of yeast. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, a little less maybe. Not exactly a tablespoon, but you can experiment with that always when you see how high you want to get the bread. The last ingredient is a little bit of sugar, and I'm going to do that. I did not mention this, and I did not have it ready, but it's a teaspoon of sugar. Around, but not in the center. And I'm going to go ahead and set the bread machine. It's set to the very first menu, that is as you can see, it has 16 settings for breads, but I'm going to use the first one, which is a white bread. I'm going to select the loaf to be 2 pounds. I'm going to select the crust to be, as you can see, it's medium, dark. I'll pick the light crust. Okay, and hit this start button right here, and you can see the machine starts churning the flour together. So it's going to do this for a few minutes. You don't need to have this is the right time to close the lid and let it go, but you can still watch it and see how it's going along. And I'll pause this video and show you how the flour looks like after some time. If it sticks to the sides, you can always use a wooden skewer to just help it along, but more often than not, if you've got the right amount of ingredients in there, you're not going to need to help the bread machine at all. It's going to do its job by itself. A minute later, this is what it looks like. And the bread machine keeps doing its job as it needs to. It's going to take about 3 hours and 5 minutes to get this bread done. And there's almost nothing for you to do at this point, just except close the lid and let it do its thing. The only reason I have it open right now is because I want you folks to see how it kneads the dough, and if you can see, there's a little bit of dough that looks like it's stuck to the sides, but it's as the bread machine catches up and gets a little more vigorous with the kneading action, it's gonna pull those pieces in. Now the only time you have a problem is when you have too much flour in there. The flour is probably going to be stuck to the sides, and that's why I insist on starting with lesser flour than extra flour. Now a minute later, you can see the machine has already pulled all the flour from the corner into the center, so I did not have to help it with a skewer and get that flour that was stuck to the sides out of the way, because it's going to do it all by itself. And as you can see, this is a better view. It will gradually pick up all those little pieces of flour and just turn it into a nice ball. So 5 minutes later, that's what your dough looks like. As you can see, it's picked up everything to the sides almost. You might have a little pieces that are stuck to that. You could help, but I would just leave it. It's going to figure that out and get to it at some point. It's normally not that loud because when you put this lid down, you can actually walk away from it right now. And look at that. It's picked all the flour away from the sides. That was the last piece. Okay, so now that it's doing it comfortably, you see it's neither, it's a nice sticky dough, and not too dry as well. We're gonna let it do its thing, and the bread will be ready 3 hours from now. This is actually 2 hours and 57 minutes left. When we started off, we had 3 hours and 3 minutes on it. So it's about 6 minutes by the time the dough gets completely picked up and kneaded all together, and it continues this kneading action for quite a while. Well, let's just wait for it to finish. So I've closed the lid. 2 hours and 57 minutes later, I'm going to let you guys see what it looks like. So it's been 10 minutes since we started this bread. As you can see, I'm just gonna show you what it looks like. It's still kneading in there. It's turned into a perfectly round ball, and it's gonna get better and better. I'm not gonna be able to show you the end product on this video because I've already shown it to you before. This is what it comes out like, and it's gonna do its thing, and I'm kind of running out of time because I have to head to work. I'm going to leave this bread machine and it's going to do its thing and have bread ready when I come back from work. The thing about the bread machine is when the bread is ready, it's really hot and it's fresh and it's soft, and you can just eat it up. Slice it. You won't be able to slice it up because you need to let it cool down for some time, and that's why I like to make the bread in advance, because by the time it's cooled down, you can slice it just like this. But if you don't let it cool down, then you would have to just cut out thicker pieces of it and just have some butter and honey ready for it, and that's just a great way to enjoy your bread as well. But if you really want to slice it this way, and then you're gonna have to wait for it to cool down, and I would say it takes about 30 minutes to a couple hours for it to cool down. And I just let my bread machine do its thing overnight, and it's ready in the morning for me, like I did today. And I started off another bread this morning, so I almost make 2 bread breads like this every single day, which is about 700 breads in a year. And you can imagine that this bread machine that costs only about $100, and the ingredients are pretty cheap. Um, you could get freshly baked home bread um, without any of those store ingredients and commercial bread ingredients in there, and it's just perfect for the family.